to try to take power in Bavaria, in Munich. That's the only place where the party existed at that time. Well, during that attempt, some of the people involved were shot because they were opposed by the army and police, and the rest of the leadership was arrested and convicted and sent to prison. They were arrested and sent to prison for 5-6 years, but they were actually released after about 1 year. And that just illustrates how easy it would have been to stop this whole thing at the time, because if they had been kept there all that time, the party would have fallen apart. Just to backtrack a little bit, when the actual Holocaust happened, actually about 11 million people were killed. 6 million of those were Jews. The big difference between the two was that the 5 million that were killed were individuals. The 6 million that were killed were families, men, women, and children. And as a matter of fact, more than 1 million of the 6 million were children, ranging from newborn to about 14. And to get back to the original story of after they were released from prison, the party started growing, and it also started becoming national all the way through the country. And together with the bad economy, etc., they became more and more powerful. Finally, they became the largest single party in Germany, and therefore had the largest number of delegates to the Congress. And the way the system works in Europe, whoever is in charge of Congress is the chancellor, and he leads the government. But usually, none of the parties had a majority, so they had to have a coalition, and that's what happened. Hitler was installed as chancellor or prime minister in January of 1933. By May of that year, the Nazis were the only party left in Germany. It happened that quickly. The party had also already started the concentration camps. The concentration camps at that time were not extermination camps yet, but they contained anybody that was possibly opposed to what they were doing. The people that were sent to these camps were kept indefinitely. They were not convicted of anything. They were just kept there and as long as the Nazis wanted. After that, all the other things started. During that time, the first of the concentration camps started, and they were mainly located near large cities. The very first one was Dachau, just outside of Munich, in a suburb of Munich. And these camps that were near large cities were actually used as a threat, that people that weren't conforming could be sent there. And later on, after the war, a lot of people claimed that they didn't know what was going on. But of course that was impossible, because they knew these camps were right there. They were actually used as a threat to people if they didn't conform. All the other things that later happened started then. There were the burning of books, and now people started losing their jobs. At first, there were all the people that had been involved in the government, in the civil service, and they were, of course, dismissed. The next group was teachers, mainly people in the universities and later on also in the public schools. So these people were basically out of jobs. And that's why some of the people that left at that time came out of these groups. A lot of other people, and that's often asked, why didn't everybody just leave? Well, most of the families had been living in Germany for a long time, and they considered themselves as German as anybody else. We, for example, have traced down my mother's family into the 1600s, and we know it was before that. So that left a lot of people here. They didn't want to leave because they considered themselves German, and they also figured that this wasn't going to last. It was just something to get into power. Well, of course, it never got better. And all the other things happened. Things like doctors could only have Jewish patients. Attorneys could only handle Jewish clients. Jewish-owned businesses were often forced to sell at very low prices. For example, the one my dad was working for was a Jewish factory that was making ladies' garments, and they had both a factory making them and a retail store. Well, they were forced to sell the retail store, and since the people that didn't know anything about that business, they requested that my dad moved in with that business, and he was there until Kristallnacht too. Well, a lot of other little things happened one at a time. But one of the interesting parts too was although some of the regulations affected everybody, there were a lot of things that only affected small groups, well-defined groups, and also there were always exceptions. And that's one of the things that let people say, well, this didn't affect me, so I don't have to worry about it. One of the things that happened there was in the schools. The German school system was the usual 8 years of schooling, unless somebody wanted to go on to university, in which case they had to move after fourth grade to a higher school that was also scheduled to go 8 years, and from there on people could go on to university. Well, the exception here was that any Jewish student whose father had been in the German army during World War I could still go. They still couldn't get into university, but they at least go to this school. And I was one of them. It is no way of getting an education.
Can we pause there, Jim?
Yep.